Security, information, both. I think we touched earlier on the topic of whether or not that's the key thread of GDPR. I suppose my hat's a security hat. Many of the conversations I'm having with my customers today are a lot less about security for GDPR. They're about security. GDPR just happens to be one of the other catalysts that are driving their activities right now. Encryption is a hot topic. People seem to think if they encrypt everything, they're exonerated from any form of penalty post-GDPR breach. Don't agree. It may make your conversation slightly easier, but it doesn't exonerate you from anything. Privileged account security, i.e. trying to realise a position of least privilege in your organisation. That's definitely helpful. But all of those are just good information security things anyway. Access control, and I wouldn't mind your take on that, because if we're talking about information access, data access, you'd like to believe that secure access control regimes will be fundamental to good information security practice, but equally a byproduct of that will be they'll be beneficial to GDPR.
Absolutely. So again, I think it comes down to defining what your business process is and defining who should have access to what in the first place. Because we can't put all of the burden on the guy who's setting up the systems to determine which Active Directory user has access to what. There's got to be a clear business reason for someone to have access to particular areas of data. So what's quite apparent is that there needs to be the right business process to ensure that the right people have access to the right data. And whilst Veritas doesn't necessarily have something to address a data breach per se, what we can do is identify when there's more access to a particular area of your infrastructure than there traditionally is. So we can give you a graphical map to show who's accessing what in your organisation. And really potentially as part of a privacy impact assessment, that's really important to graphically map which users have access to which data. Because a lot of organisations will probably find that IT or legal or maybe HR have got a blanket level of access which may no longer be appropriate. Or you may find that people are storing information in areas that they really shouldn't, just because there's a business process that prevents them from storing it in their own local area. The users are all intelligent, they'll find a way to store information somewhere else if they're not allowed to store it locally. So I think it's really important and a really important part of GDPR to get this right. And this is where Veritas works very closely with other vendors to ensure that we've got the best of breed products as part of a portfolio to take to our joint customers to help solve a lot of these issues.
Which I suppose in summary comes back to our point that it's not information, it's not security, it's not process, it's all of the above.
Absolutely.
And to your earlier point, you can't rely on a tool alone to do things that an organisation should really be able to do in relation to understanding their use of data and the impact of their data in a way that a tool or an automated system just can't do.
Correct. So one of the ways I like to think about it is a little Venn diagram where we've got business process analysis, we've got data investigation and reduction, and we've got security and breach notification. And those three circles all overlap. And depending on the nature of the business, those circles may be different sizes. For example, if you're data rich, you may have a larger circle for the data reduction piece. If you're holding very confidential or sensitive information, then the data breach, the general data security may be much more important to you. But I think the business process analysis circle is probably not really going to change in size much for most organisations, because everybody will have to look at not just the access to data when it's sat inside an organisation, but the flow of that data and information through the organisation to the end of its natural life cycle. That's really important, so we mustn't underestimate that.